Today's segment of Sound Balming is brought to you by Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Body Care. I cannot express to you how much we love their products. Although we use them all year, as the weather gets colder, we need these products even more. The dreaded drop in temperature, the dryness, the itchiness, and the unnecessary flakiness is inevitable. Shea butter from Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Body Care is the only thing that works for my skin and hair needs. Not only do these products cure my dry skin, the whipped butter goes on smoothly and doesn't leave that uncomfortably thick, sticky residue. Bonus? It smells absolutely amazing. There are so many different scents to choose from too. Not only do they carry skincare products, there are products for authentic living, face, shower, hair and beard, spritzers and perfumes, and bath products. Let me tell you, we cannot even keep the stuff in the studio. The entire production team as well as all our children use Jimmy and Mary's product. Jimmy and Mary's take pride in creating quality, handcrafted products from simple ingredients for the entire family. Their products are made for all skin types and are 100% handmade, 100% vegan, and 100% cruelty-free. Skincare is important. Moisture is key, and keeping our skin and hair hydrated is essential. I cannot emphasize how much we trust Jimmy and Mary's for all of our skincare needs. Hurry on up to jimmyandmarys.com and check out their products. Did I mention service is fast and efficient too? Don't forget to mention that you heard about Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Skincare on Sound Balming. Use the discount code SOUNDBALM20 to get 15% off. That's SOUNDBALM20 for 15% off at Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Skincare.
Hey everybody, welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bombs. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, the star of the show,
LaMarr, Darnell Shields.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever the time of the day it is, you're at the right place at the right time. And welcome to my show. I am Dr. LaMarr Darnell Shields, the creator of Sound Bombing. And my goal with this show is to introduce you to people with ideas that will help you unlock your full potential. As human beings, we tend to focus more on the physical and material aspects of life than spiritual issues. We are so engrossed in the former that we barely find the time to think about the latter. But it is essential to know that we can only find unconditional happiness and peace if we enrich our inner spiritual lives. Similarly, we rarely pay heed to spirituality at work, neglecting it and giving little or no importance to finding meaning at work. Quite often we're at work talking about the Netflix special, talking about what Cardi B, Kanye West, and Jay-Z are doing. But the reality is the concept of spirituality at work might seem like being religious at work, but it's nothing of the sort. It's nothing far from the truth. Contrary to popular conception, it has nothing to do with religious practices or belief. So, what is workplace spirituality? I'm so glad you asked, because my next guest, Dr. Kweisi Ausar, is going to answer that question and so many more. Dr. Ausar is an associate professor at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. You know, we know him as UNLV. He conducts research on workplace spirituality and other topics related to human dynamics in organizations. Dr. Ausar is focused on empowering individuals to transcend undesirable, dysfunctional, and harmful conditioning by cultivating spiritual competencies that are designed to increase mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. In his new memoir, No, Sir, Breaking the Chains That Bind the Spirit, Dr. Ausar details how spiritual cultivation revolutionized his life and how it can do the same for you. It was the art and science of spirituality that brought Dr. Ausar out of addiction, existential crisis, and mental health issues. So listen, we got a power-packed show for you today. So put your hands together for my friend all the way from the desert in Nevada, but he's in the studio with us now. Well, someone in the studio. Put your hands together for my man, Dr. Kweisi Ausar. Brother, welcome to Sound Bombing. How are you?
I'm excellent, Dr. Shields. Thanks for that great introduction. I'm excited about the opportunity to share, on this concept of workplace spirituality, because not only is it something that I've been engaged in relative to the last 10 years, but it's a theme in my life. Yeah. So I'm excited about the questions that you have for me.
Well, Brother Kweisi, let's get down to it. I hear people say all the time, I'm not really religious, but I consider myself spiritual. Now, I say the same thing too. So how do you define spirituality? And then let's unpack the concept of workplace spirituality.
Sure. People often conflate spirituality with religion. So it might be difficult to have religion without spirituality, although I've seen some religious people behave in ways that are inconsistent with spirituality. It's very much true that you can have spirituality without religion. Religions are based on the lives and teachings and beliefs of historical figures, right? Spirituality promotes an inclusive environment, and it suggests that there is no monopoly on the truth, that we are all linked by an inseparable bond to both creator and creation. For me, spirituality is not an abstract concept, right? I ground myself in both Hermetic and Kemetic philosophy, because these were the foundations of all modern day religions. I'm really excited about bringing this philosophy to the context of workplace spirituality, because as it stands right now in the academic space, there really is no spiritual philosophy that undergirds this concept of workplace spirituality.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm what I'm hearing from you is you're talking about the African perspective of spirituality, which is something that I prescribe to. We're going to talk about that. Go a little deeper, man. We already moving. One of my favorite teachers, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Wayne Dyer, and in one of his books, the title is called There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, which provides the essential foundations for spiritual problem solving. And he goes on to explain the basic principles needed to understand how to access the world of spirit. We give sort of specific suggestions to help people deal with this physical world through this spiritual perspective. How is your concept of spirituality connected to what I just mentioned to Dr. Dyer is talking about? Is there a connection or is there a disconnection? And then I want to talk about your concept of African spirituality, because that's somewhat different than people don't really understand. We talk about the Kemetic teachings. People are like, what the heck is this dude talking about? I never heard that before. But we know when you talk about history, all the great teachers studied on the continent of Africa.
Yeah, no question. In terms of the way that I conceptualize spirituality, it's very much consistent with Dwyer, right? In that spirituality is a process of raising our ability to access our higher mind and ultimately our divine mind, or the divine mind, right? So most of us live our lives focused and really conscious only of the animal spirit, right? The animal level, the lower mind, where appetites and sensuality dominate our thinking. I was talking recently with someone about work in the context of being rather than having. It seems that everything is focused on what I have. What I have, has become, the staple of my identity. And to me, From a spiritual perspective, it's about what you are. It's about being or becoming. So when we talk about conceptualizing spirituality, it's really about moving from the lower mind to the higher mind, where intellect dominates. Our ability to reason out what's true is critical to spirituality, right? Because there's so many different theories, philosophies, theologies that it boggles the mind. So on an individual level, we have to come to some standard or some place where we understand, the existential questions of life, right? About life and death and what happens after life. And for that, you need some sort of a system. You need to be grounded in some philosophy. And so, as you mentioned, Kemetic philosophy, which flows hand in hand with Hermetic philosophy, is really what I base what I do on.
Well, we know from watching TV shows like The Office, from watching all of these TV shows, that many of our organizations are super chaotic. I must admit, when researching you and when my producers sent information to me that they had discovered, this concept of spirituality in the workplace, of workplace spirituality was foreign to me. But you're talking about organizations that we know that many organizations are dysfunctional. We know that many organizations are shutting down financially because of COVID. We know that many organizations, especially folks who have a high efficacy of using technology, they're allowing people to work from home. People are sort of disconnected. But in organizations driven by materialism, don't you find it difficult that they may not be able to change or build a parallel culture of workplace spirituality because materialism is the bottom line for them?
I think that, yes, it is true that there are those organizations whose values are primarily rooted in the financial aspects of business. But I would argue that you can have both. I look at companies like Starbucks, who I've done research and training for, and they work to create a culture in which not only do they cultivate servant leadership as a style, right? But they embed their values deeply within their culture. Their commitment to the community, for example, their commitment to global sustainable responsibility. You don't see them, putting out commercials about the good that they're doing, like companies like Walmart do, right? They don't have to do that because it's embedded in who they are. And so the value systems that run deeply in companies are really important. But for workplace spirituality on the individual level, it's about finding organizations whose values align with my personal values, right? Why would I want to work for something that I cannot derive, or a company that I cannot derive meaning and purpose at the place that I work, right? So there's meaning and purpose both in the work that I do and at the place that I work. And so leaders have a responsibility to create the conditions that are necessary for individuals to derive this meaning and purpose.
So
and those
go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
No, and those organizations like Starbucks employ or encourage their leaders to use certain styles like servant leadership.
So I'm out here. I'm a leader of an organization. I'm a principal of a school. I'm a superintendent. I'm running a nonprofit, a for-profit, and I want to incorporate workplace spirituality. What are some ways to encourage spirituality in the workplace? Because I'm sure somebody is listening and is still somewhat confused about spirituality and religion and how do I incorporate that into my space. And you use Starbucks as a great example of someone who does not have to put out all these commercials. It's just look at what I do and it's aligned with our mission. So what are some ways to encourage spirituality in the workplace?
Well, there's three levels, right? There's an organizational level, there's a leader level, and then there's an individual level, right? Irregardless to whether an organization is an organization that practices the principles of spirituality or an organization that has the values that are aligned with your own personal values, we can still, at the individual level, extract meaning and purpose from the work that we do and in the place that we work. work is about seeking and striving, right? To me, work has been the space in which I self-actualize, right? So, there's no organization, there's no government, there's no teachers, there's no one's going to give me my purpose. My purpose is something that I have to define for myself, and for me, it's about aligning my talents, which extrapolates into my strengths, and choosing jobs, right, that align with my capabilities. I say all the time that, I had a guy who wanted to be a medical doctor, but his math and science skills were not, up to par.
Oh,
his
yeah,
ability,
he wasn't working on me, brother.
See, that's what I'm saying. He could still be a doctor, though,
Yeah.
right? But to your point, he's not gonna.
Because brother Kweisi, when I walk through the room, I'm looking at all the degrees, I'm looking at all the awards. I'm not looking at you pose with Barack Obama or Lil Durk or Young Jeezy or Oprah Winfrey or Hillary Clinton, Katy Perry. I'm looking for some degrees. I'm looking for some awards and things of that nature.
Absolutely. I tell you, when we choose occupations that align with our strengths, it's possible that we never work a day in our lives.
So I agree with that 100%. But Kweisi, in the world that we're living in, people are struggling. I just talked to a friend of mine who's going into a school today, and I asked her, what are your routines when you walk into the building? And she says, I don't have any. And when I talk to educators, because I'm in that space quite a bit, they say, I love the kids, but it's the adults that I'm dealing with. When I listen to my friends who are working at, in the stock market, stock exchange, or technology, they when they walk into these buildings, their spirit is drained, but they're thinking the bottom line, Kweisi, is I have to make money. I have to take care of my family. I'm like you. I don't, when I wake up, I'm working. I'm serving. Jay-Z said it this way. I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. So I am the business. So I don't need to go into a building, but many people, they don't have that opportunity to do that. So they go into these jobs and they're worn out. Again, using my friend as an example, who clearly said that, she doesn't have a routine. She just shows up in the morning. And we know when you just show up and you're not taking care of your mental, physical, spiritual well-being, you're going to then take on all the energy and the characteristics of other people. So what message you have for those people who are in those spaces, who are in these jobs where they feel like they can't go anywhere, but they still have to have a level of, so as they say in a Black church, some level of praise inside of me, even though the world around me may be crumbling?
Sometimes we have to look for meaning and purpose. We have to look much more deeper at why we are where we are. Are we there because we chose to be there? If I'm in an environment where it drains and depletes my soul, then either I need to do something about how I am perceiving that environment, right? Or I need to put myself in a different environment. Indeed. Sometimes our problems come from our perceptions, right? And I'll give you an example. Workplace discrimination, dealt with it on multiple levels. And it's a big part of my story, of what I experienced climbing the corporate ladder. But when I reflect back on those experiences, I have to ask myself, to what extent did I contribute to that, right? What role am I playing in the way that I'm feeling? Because no one can do anything that I don't let them do to me in terms of my mind. They may be able to fire me. They may be able to demote me. They may be able to write me up, but it's not what they do. It's how I respond to it. So being spiritually fit, before you go into an environment like that, when I say spiritually fit, I'm talking about a calm spirit, a calm heart, a calm mind. To the extent that whatever's happening around me doesn't necessarily have a lasting impact on me. Because I can choose the thoughts that I have, I can choose the feelings that I have, and I don't have to respond to you treating me poorly with anxiety, stress, fear, worry, these things that make us sick. But if I'm in an environment where that's perpetual, right? if I'm in a toxic work environment, working for a toxic boss or a company that has no values, my best option might be to remove myself.
So you are on fire, and I appreciate that. You're giving me a better an idea of how you ended up in this work, because I looked at your bio, looked at your CV. You could be doing anything. I want to go back a little more. Why are you so passionate about this work? Out of all the things that you've done, in the work that you've been doing across the country and also in Nevada, why are you so passionate about this work when it comes to workplace spirituality?
Because of my experiences. Adversity is the optimal condition for spiritual growth. And I found that the workplace presented to me the most adverse situation and situations that I had seen in my entire life, right? Because work to me is about self-actualizing, right? It's about becoming that which I am destined to become. It is a means to an end. And so when you approach it that way, and then you run into marginalization, workplace incivility, social hostility, people just treating you poorly for no other reason than maybe the color of your skin, you have to either man out or man up. You have to find the capabilities to deal with that and push through that, or you take your ball and you go home. And, I was never one to quit. And so pushing through and past these instances of workplace discrimination enabled me to grow spiritually far beyond, my wildest dreams. And I know too that the leader is pivotal when it comes to how we perceive our work experience. And, as a leader coming up, teaching other leaders how to be successful, how to reach financial goals. Well, you reach financial goals by treating people well. You reach financial goals by being vested in people's goal achievement, not just how much money they're making, but are they realizing their goals, dreams, and aspirations? Are they self-actualizing? And when I found out that the real value of working in the corporate world was not just all the money I made, but the fact that I had an opportunity to help other people realize their goals, dreams, and aspirations, the intrinsic value there was priceless.
What then would you say is the relationship between spirituality or workplace spirituality and happiness in the workplace?
Well, the relationship is significant on the organizational side. And you said happiness. I'm gonna maybe change that word to work satisfaction or job satisfaction, right? The outcomes of that for the organization is reduced turnover, it's higher engagement, it's higher productivity. When people are satisfied, when people experience happiness, right, their productivity goes through the roof. Their ability to not only produce, but to create, to see things that maybe aren't there, and to enable better workplace systems, better workplace processes that not only make work more enjoyable, but make the company more money, becomes a reality. When people work in a toxic work environment, the opposite happens, right? And so at the individual level, I just wanted my boss to have my best interest at heart. The rest is up to me. The rest is up to me, because at the end of the day, I've got to not just meet expectations, I got to exceed expectations if I want to realize my goals, dreams, and aspirations, right? Now, I'm someone who was never satisfied. I'm still not content, right? I don't know that contentment is in the cards for me, and that's okay. right? Not everybody is like me. Some people are fine at getting to certain levels and just retiring at that level. I was never that person. I was always seeking and striving, which is, by the way, central to spirituality.
And where does that drive come from?
Purpose. There's a reason that I do what I do, beyond self-actualization, right? I believe that I'm here for a short period of time. And yes, along the way, I need to transcend some things personally, like the addiction, right? I brought that addiction in from another life, right? I had to defeat that. I had to transcend that. But I'm also here to lead the light, to provide a path. My grandmother used to sing this spiritual, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. That burns within me.
Yeah,
right?
that was Dr. King's favorite song when he would see Fannie Lou Hamer, the great civil rights activist from Mississippi, and she sang that song. Dr. King said, "Fannie, please sing that song." And that, to hear you say that, because it is a little light. It is a little light, but that light is bright. It shines. It lights other people's lights.
Correct.
And I think that I'm hoping that my listeners, as they're listening to you, feel that because you're lighting my fire as I'm listening to you, listening to your story, talking about the challenges you've come out of. And I know that my listeners who are struggling right now, who are going to be listening to this at work, who about to say, I'm about to get the hell up out of here right now. Dr. Kweisi just told me I need to go. I'm about to leave my job. We don't want you to leave your job just yet because you got children, you got family. We want you to do the work, because as he's talking about this little light of mine, it does create a spark. And you said that spark from your grandmother's, that song, what did it do to you?
It informed me that my life is not about the material. My life is not about the things that I acquire. My life is about the light and how bright that light is. And to your point, how many other lights will my light influence it? And so that's, to me, the ultimate purpose, because at the end of the day, which is only this cycle of life, I want to leave an imprint, not just on the world, but on my soul, such that the next transition in the next lifetime will be much, much greater.
Well, you are holding managers and leaders accountable. You mentioned a couple of minutes ago, it is their responsibility to sort of create or cultivate this culture in this space. Talk to me about managers. What role do they play when it comes to the context of work spirituality? And what if there's a pushback? What if they're still struggling with their own connection? One of the things that I do, Kweisi, in my work is I do a lot of work around self-care for those who care for others. And out of all of the talks that I do, I just got a message from a school leader in Pasadena. And all the things I do, that's the thing that gets people. Because I tell them self-care isn't selfish. You have to pour back into yourself. When we get on an airplane and that flight attendant says, before I put it on my son Kweisi's face, that oxygen mask, I put it on my face first, and then I put it on my son Kweisi's face. But I have to do it. I have to put it on my face first. Talk to the managers that are out there, the leaders, and give them some strategies and help them understand the role that they play in the context of workplace spirituality. And then for those listeners who are in these toxic environments, what can they do to then build their workplace spiritual muscle so they can still work under some of these conditions? Because you look at our people, when you look at people of African descent, before we even came up this word workplace spirituality, Kweisi, our ancestors were singing on a chain gang. Our ancestors were singing on these plantations. Our ancestors were singing on these boats. So they knew that there was something greater for them outside of where they were actually going. But there's somebody that's listening right now who feels stuck. There's a leader who doesn't know what to do, doesn't know why he or she they're losing their employees. Give them some strategies, and then also give the people who are in the belly of the beast who are struggling some things that they can use while they're in this.
A leader has a tremendous amount of responsibility. And first of all, let me differentiate leader from manager.
Okay.
And I'll do it simply. You manage things, you lead people. You don't manage people. And it's the attitude of the leader. It's the disposition of the leader. It's the personality, the characteristics that the leader displays that colors the attitudes of followers, right? Of those who they lead. So the attitude has always got to be a positive attitude, right? No matter what's going on, the leader can't let them see you sweat. You have got to have broad shoulders. You have got to have, an abiding ability to weather a storm, because there's always going to be storms, whether there's storms that come to you or whether you create, right, the drama or the storm that you're in. There's always going to be a storm as a leader. First and foremost, leadership is not kumbaya, right? It's not without conflict. Now, sometimes, right, you have to create the conflict. Most often, the conflict is going to come to you, but there are times when and particularly when it comes to dealing with people, right? The primary, to me, one of the primary responsibilities that a leader has is to hire the right people. I think it's criminal to hire someone for a job that they do not have the ability to be highly successful in. Now, note that I said highly successful, right? Because, that's another indicator of satisfaction. That's another indicator of organizational performance. Can this employee do the job at a high level? So if I'm putting people in position that I don't have a high level of confidence that they can be highly successful, to me, that's a criminal act.
That's setting them up for failure. And
that absolutely is. Yeah. But and then the leader's confronted with the problem of, what do I do with people who don't perform? Right. And I say there's three things that happens in that context. Number one, either you haven't trained them, right? You haven't given them the resources, the tools, the knowledge, the skills that they need to be successful. Or you haven't created accountability sufficient enough that the behavior changes, right? Or the person doesn't have the ability to do the job. So as a leader, you got to get to the answer. What is the answer? Why isn't this person performing? Leaders fail because their subordinates fail, right? The leader's performance is tied directly to their subordinates' performance. So you have to figure out real quick, first of all, have I given this person, does this person really understand what it is I need from them, right? Oftentimes leaders make assumptions, that are poor.
One of the things that I've been doing, Kweisi, is this exchange when I'm giving people a directive, be it as a leader, employee, employer situation, my children, my partner. I ask this question. It's really helped me quite a bit, because you're talking about how we set them up for failure. We want to set them up for success. I'll say to them, what did you hear me say? And when I ask that question, it's giving them an opportunity to repeat back. If I said, yes, Kweisi, I need you to turn off the light. What did you hear me say? Oh, you said somebody, the last person in the room, turn out the light. So then I come back and I complain, why the hell is the doggone electric bill so high? Well, you said somebody. I thought you said somebody. So when you're asking that question for clarity, my children, Kweisi, brother, my favorite word is clarity. They hate that. I'll say, they call me Baba. So what's Baba's favorite word? Clarity. Because I'm always talking about clarity. I work with a group of brown boys yesterday, 10 years old, and I talk about clarity. And one kid said, what does clarity mean? One kid raised his hand. He was able to break it down. So again, what you're talking about is so on point, because you are not only are we setting people up for failure, we are really, really giving them really, really hurting their self-esteem. We're pushing them in a different direction because they have all these degrees, these pedigrees, they've done all this great work. Then they come here, and there's nothing wrong with failure. But again, intentional failure is not what we want. And so I'm so glad that you talked about how do you giving these some of these directives. You can keep going. Then I want you to talk about what are some things that the folks who are in these toxic environments, how can they build their spiritual their spiritual muscle in the workplace as well.
Yeah, well, let me just finish up on the leader. There are principles that are significant to spirituality: integrity, doing what I say I'm going to do, right? Transparency, admitting it when I make a mistake. Leaders oftentimes get in these jobs, particularly entry-level leaders. They make a mistake and then they want to blame someone else for it, right? So having the ability to admit when you make a mistake is huge to follower trust, right? Do the followers trust you? So there's respect, there's humility, there's kindness, there's a tremendous number of values that organizations should set for leaders, right? But that leaders should, even if these values don't exist, these leaders should adapt these values. They should use a character-based approach to how they lead others. Well, at the individual level, it's difficult when you don't have power, right? When you don't have power over the leader, over the direction or lack of direction, or over the support or lack of support you get in your job, is difficult, right? What I have come to believe is that if I can perform above the expectation, irregardless of what's happening around me, irregardless of what other people are doing or saying, if I can perform above the expectation, a lot of my problems go away. So at the individual level, it's about mastery. It's about excellence. It's about knowing what's expected, right? And over-delivering on those expectations, because that puts you in a situation in which you don't have people coming at you. You don't have a lot of the drama and trauma that results from, to your point, a lack of clarity about what it is I'm contributing to the goals here. It's about having a clear vision of what is my job and how do I exceed those expectations. That's ground one. Now, if I do that and I do that consistently, if you can't flourish under those conditions, then you do need to check out of that organization.
Yeah, you need to know when it's time to leave. As I guess it was on Kenny Loggins. You got to know when to show up. That whole thing, you got to know when to fold. You got to know when to leave. When I left the classroom, Brother Kweisi, I gave a long speech to the staff, to my students. I was in tears, but I knew in my spirit it was time to leave. And one of my students came up to me, I was teaching high school, and he says, "Mr. Shields, I'm so glad that you're leaving, because that means that you're following whatever your mission is, and your mission here is done." And so I was really appreciative. I thought it was a little hate when he said, "We're glad you're leaving." Like, dude, yeah, you glad because you still owe me some homework. That's why you glad I'm leaving, man. So speaking of homework, you've done your homework so much that you've written a book about all the things that you've been doing. The title of the book is called No Sir, S-U-R. Talk to me about your book and why the title, and what will listeners gain from reading this great book?
Well, the title comes from an identity crisis that I had at a very young age. When I was 8 years old, my great-grandfather, who, by the way, is not my paternal grandfather, took me to the plantation in which his father was a sharecropper on, right? And so we get to the farm, and I'm excited. I'm 8 years old. This is history. I'm like, wow. And so we're sitting, I'm wondering why we're not going and knocking on the door, right? We're just sitting there. And so this white woman comes out and goes to the mailbox. The name on the mailbox was Gatling. It was the name that I had. It was my adopted name. And in that moment, there was just a confluence of things that came down on me. The reality of slavery, the fact that I had come face to face with the place and potentially the people who held, my ancestors in bondage. It did something to me. It changed my world. I remember crying most of the way back to Ohio. This was in Gates, North Carolina. And when I got back, I said, you know what? I don't want this name anymore. And I changed my name. I remember Kenya Takuma. That was the name that I had given myself. I found an African book and I said, I'm not going to be this.
Done.
And you know what? They clowned me. Like my family, my friends, they had a laugh fest on me about that name. And my grandmother finally said, you know, you need to let that go. With a name like that, you are never going to be treated well. And that, you know, she was right. You know, it took me a while to let go of it, but she was right. Well, fast forward, you know, through addiction, and there's a whole story about the hate that I had for my father, which turned into love after he died. I mean, there's a tremendous amount in there relative to, you know, not just abandonment, because that's why I was adopted, because my father, you know, disowned me. But also how that led into the addiction, you know, and how in my subconscious mind, that had been working on me most of my adult life in a negative way. And so when I came to the revelation, George Floyd broke the dam in my consciousness. When George Floyd happened, you know, something happened within me that caused me to go back into myself, into my soul, and to search and to find my true identity. And that's where the name Kweisi Ausar came from. Kweisi means conquering sons of kings, right? Conquering not in the sense of taking other people's land or resources, but conquering the internal and external demons that seek to destroy me, right? Ausar is a spiritual faculty, a unifier, a harmonizer of all mental forces on earth and in heaven. That's what I aspire to be, right? So my name has great meaning to my purpose and to the development of my soul. And that's what the book is about. It's about that journey from that little boy to, you know, all the way through addiction, through going to school, getting degrees, through workplace discrimination and climbing the corporate ladder, working my way from a food server to a senior level management, coming into academia, being discriminated against in academia, and on. And so all of that led me to not just write the book, but to create this Center for Spiritual Cultivation.
I love your story of names. My children, I grew up in a very strong African community. When I went to school, changed my diet, became a vegan. I tell people my hashtag is meat free since 93. Was around a lot of African consciousness when you go to historically Black college. Grew up in various communities. And it was interesting when we decided to have children. Before I get to the children, I got a chance to meet Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, you know, all of the Ashwa Kweisi, all the African scholars, the true scholars of African spirituality, Ivan Van Sertima, you know, all these folks are coming into my circle. And I got a chance to meet Dr. Clark, who's a great historian. And I remember going to hear him lecture. And someone said, Dr. Clark, why did you never change your name? He says, I didn't change my name. He said, but I changed my mind and how I see myself. Mm-hmm. And so I thought about that because many people ask me the same thing, but my children have all of them have strong names. Hadia, Adama, Mosiah Sekou, gave them names with meaning, but I also have other names connected to me. But those names are so important because it adds value. It adds a level of ownership. When you give a name to something, you're owning that. That's where this whole concept of slave, like when you give it slave, those names are important. And so again, as we rename ourselves, whatever we call ourselves, I just want my listeners to understand that there's a transformation coming along, not just with the naming of yourself, but as they said, be renewed by the changing of your mind. And reading a couple of excerpts from your book, I see that. How can my listeners get a copy of your book? And then how can my listeners get in contact with you if they want to continue the conversation with you, if they want to hear more about the great things that you're doing? How could they do that?
Well, certainly the book is available on Amazon, both paperback and ebook or Kindle. In terms of getting in contact with me, you can get in contact with me through the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, or you can get in contact with me through my website, the Center for Spiritual Cultivation.com. I am putting together a course on workplace spirituality. It really is called Our Spirit at Work. And there's a double meaning there, but I'm putting together a course that I plan on launching in 2022. I'm looking to build a community of like-minded people who want to find ways to realize goals, dreams, and aspirations in the workplace, right? Because again, the workplace offers us, and I think at least it did for me, an ideal setting to self-actualize. And it's far more about what I have in terms of titles, money, property, prestige, and far more about who I am, what I'm being, or what I'm becoming. Right. And to me, it's about mastery. It's about expertise. It's about using the imagination, our intuition, our intellect, which ultimately, if we can cultivate those attributes of ourselves, we can get to wisdom. It's about tapping into the higher mind in pursuit of the divine mind. So that's what I'm about. That's what I offer. And my door is wide open.
Brother, you were on fire. As soon as I hit record, I was feeling your spirit, feeling your energy. I mean, thanks for hanging out with me. I want to encourage you, go and check out his book, pick up a copy of it, share it for those that celebrate Christmas. It's a great Christmas gift for those who celebrate Kwanzaa, for those that celebrate Hanukkah, which we just came out of. Any birthday, it's a great book. Or if you just want to just help somebody about, where they can hear a strategy about a great journey of hope and aspiration, is a great book. So you cannot leave, Brother Kweisi. The second part of the show is called the Super Bomb Question. The difference between this part and the second part is that they're rapid fire questions, and I want you to answer them as quickly as possible. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go. What is your favorite word?
Love.
What's your favorite quote? It could be a spiritual verse, or it could be a lyrics to a song.
Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life.
I'm sorry. No, let me go back to that. What's your favorite quote, scripture verse, or a lyric to a song?
Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life.
What's your superpower?
Intelligence.
What's your spirit animal?
Lion.
What moves you to tears of joy?
Birth.
What moves you to tears of sorrow?
Discrimination.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
Teach.
What is the book or books you've given most as a gift, and why?
The Caliban.
What's your morning routine after you do all the biological functions? What are some other things that you do to start your day?
Meditate. Exercise.
What do you know for sure?
That there is no absolute truth on this plane, only relative truth, that which I reason with my highest ability and intellect.
Kweisi Ausar, if you were in the Mr. America talent competition, brother, what would your talent be?
Teaching.
Well, you've been teaching all day, and you've taught me quite a bit of new information, and you've actually added on to complementing some of the other things I knew. Brother, thanks for hanging out with me today. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you. I wish you much success as we go into this new year, 2022. Continue to build, be safe, be well, be kind, but more importantly, be courageous.
Thanks, Dr. Shields. I appreciate it.
I also want to thank my amazing engineer, Alexander Blanc, my super duper producer, my new producer, Carrie Mattia, Supremacy, for that dope theme music, and all of you for listening. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment. We're on every platform. There's no reason that you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel. There's no reason. There should be no reason if you're not subscribe to the show. Stop being stingy. Share me with everybody. We're on every platform. If you want to know more about me, and if you do, you can go to drlds.com. But listen, go out and do something for someone other than yourself today. You've been listening to Sound Bombing. Peace and blessings.
The Super Bomb questions are brought to you by Mountain Made CBD. Mountain Made is changing the CBD game by offering a line of high-dose CBD tablets at an affordable price. Their products are THC-free and third-party tested for accuracy, cleanliness, and potency. Their products, which ship nationwide, include Build for CBD saturation, Boost for precision titration, and Recover for rest and rehab. With 9 years experience in hemp and fitness, Mountain Made's founders are focused on creating a quality product to help those who live an activated lifestyle. Check out mountainmade.life. Again, that's mountainmade.life to find out more about how their products can help you crush life. Remember, their products ship nationwide. Go check out their website today and follow them on social media at Mountain Made. That's the @ MNTMADE. Our staff at Sound Balming uses Build before a morning workout, which helps to push our bodies to a whole new level on a daily basis. Try Build, try Boost, try Recover. Our staff is using these products to enhance our active lifestyle naturally, and we are crushing life with Mountain Made CBD, and you can too. Start today by going to mountainmade.life and ordering Build, Boost, Recover, or the multitude of other products that they have which will enhance your lifestyle. I promise you, you won't regret it.